All right, hey everybody, Teacher Moon here. I'm going to do some homework help for topic 2, part 1A. The homework assignment was a little bit different. You can see it in that corner right there, page 68, numbers 1 through 5. You can pick any two questions you want from numbers 1 through 5. Um, we're in pink today. Happy Mean Girls Day, everyone. If you don't know what Mean Girls Day is, go look it up. Anyway, Happy Mean Girls Day. We wear pink on Wednesdays. You can pick any two questions from numbers 1 through 5. Totally up to the student what question they wanted to pick. Furthermore, questions 6 through 20, you can do the even ones or the odd ones. And that also was the student's choice whether they wanted to choose to do the even ones or the odd ones. So I just picked a couple that I'm going to kind of sample on the board for the ones between 6 and 20. But first I'm going to talk about all those questions 1 through 5. So question number 1, what are integers and how are they used to represent real world quantities? So very simply, it's asking you what an integer is, which we learned during class today. An integer is a positive or negative whole number and the number 0. So you can answer that first and then assess how they're used to represent real world quantities. You can think in terms of money in a bank account or air temperature and the weather and the temperature, something like that. It says, what do you know about two different integers that are opposites? And we talked about how the magnitude of the number represents how far is this number from 0. If you think about that, it'll help you answer that question. Then how do you read? And it's got a negative sign and the numeral 1 and the numeral 7. So you've got a negative sign with a 1 and a 7, and you should be able to know that it's read as negative 17. Then it says construct arguments. Which amount represents a debt of $250? $250 or a negative $250? One of those represents you owing someone $250 versus you earning $250. And you should be able to identify that and explain why that is so. Number 5, when you are comparing two negative integers, how can you determine which integer is the greater number? So that's going to be based on, if we know they're both negative, then they're both below 0. So the one that is closest to 0 would be the one that is greater because it's coming farther to the right or to the top of that number line that is being displayed. That should help with whichever two questions you pick 1 through 5. So now let's talk about these other ones. For 6 through 17, all you had to do was write the opposite of the number. So that means the number that is the same distance from 0 on the other side of 0. So the opposite of negative 1 will be 1. By the way, saying opposite is another way of saying additive inverse. That's the more collegiate terminology, the additive inverse. In other words, if I add these two numbers together, the result will be 0. They will cancel each other out through addition, and the answer will be 0. So if I combine a negative 1 and a 1, it will give me 0. Okay? The opposite of 0, well, we learned just through the rule that the opposite of 0 is 0. But if you think about that in terms of additive inverse, what number can I add to 0 so that the answer will be 0? So of course the answer also proves itself to be 0. Now we need a number that is 28 units away from 0 in the negative direction. So the opposite of 28 is negative 28. And if we combine 28 and negative 28, it will also be 0. And for number 16, we have 100. And the answer, of course, is going to be negative 100. These questions are so easy. Really, I feel like the only reason this concept isn't taught at lower grade levels is because they haven't introduced negative numbers to the full extent they could be introduced at lower grade levels. But this is really easy, and no one should have any problems going through that. Then for 18, 19, and 20, all you have to do is put the numbers in order from the least to the greatest. So here we have a 2, a negative 3, a 0, and a negative 4. So I want the number that is smaller than 0 and farthest away from 0 at the same time. That'll be my first number. I only have two numbers that are smaller than 0, -3 and -4. -4 is 4 units away from 0. -3 is 3 units away from 0. So this one is farther away, and they're both less than 0. Because this one is farther away, I'm going to start there. -4. My only other number smaller than 0 is -3. So I don't have to think too much about that. Then it's time for 0 itself. And then the last one left is 2. And through that same process, you'll be able to handle all of those 18, 19, and 20. Just think which numbers out of the ones smaller than 0, meaning the negative numbers, which one is the farthest away from 0. That's where I'll start, and then I'll work my way closer to 0. Then I'll start working my way up the opposite direction. So with that, I'm done with today's homework help video, and everyone have a nice day.